All right, so we've achieved a lot already with not many lines of code. We've implemented our in-app purchase, and we've also given the user access to their purchases for now and forever in the future. Now, there's just one problem. What happens if, say, the user gets a new phone or the user updates to the latest iOS version? Then, as you know, some of the apps gets deleted permanently. And that means that our user defaults for the app are also wiped clean. So how do they get access to their purchased product? Well, that is where restoring in-app purchases comes in. And Apple, when they review your app with an in-app purchase, are very, very militant about the restore purchase button. I've had long email chains with Apple employees just trying to show them where they can find my restore button. So make sure that it's somewhere prominent, or make sure you show them where it is in your app, or tell them where it is in your app when you send it to them for review, because you can end up with long delays. I think it was something like 2 or 3 weeks before the app got approved because it had a slightly hidden restore button. But essentially what Apple wants to do is to ensure that their users get the best experience and they don't get tricked into making an in-app purchase but then not being able to access that purchase when they update their iOS or get a new phone. So for that, we've already included an IB action right at the top of the navigation bar that says restore. So that's pretty clear, and you don't have to make it this clear because obviously it's a little bit too in your face, and you can actually hide it inside a menu or something, and just make sure that you tell the Apple employee when you are uploading it for publishing where that restore button is. Now, when the user presses the restore button, we want to trigger a process of checking their current user ID and checking it against the database on Apple's servers to see whether if they've previously purchased this in-app purchase before. And if they have, then we're going to give them access to the product straight away. So the code that enables us to do this is again using that SK Payment Queue default object. And we're going to tap into restore completed transactions, which asks the payment queue to restore previously completed purchases. And this hits up Apple servers, checks the user's Apple ID against all of the in-app purchases they've made before. And if the product with this ID has already been purchased, then it will come back and trigger this payment delegate method, and it will tell us that that has happened. So we can catch that using another else if, saying if transaction dot transaction state is equal to dot restored, which is the message that we get sent back when this is successful after checking against Apple servers. And then this is where we restore their purchase. And in our code, that just means trigger show premium quotes. And then print transaction restored, then terminate the transaction just as we did before. So SK Payment Queue dot default dot finish transaction, and the transaction we want to end is the one that is currently being reported back. So let's hit run and check that out. Okay, so you can see that currently, because the app was previously installed, you can see that I'm not being told to buy more quotes, and I've got access to all 12 quotes. But let's say if I delete this app, so I'm going to long hold on it and I'm going to delete it. And now if I run this app again onto my phone, then I shouldn't have a copy of the user defaults. And you can see that it's gone back to the previous state before I made that purchase. So now let's tap on this restore button to trigger our IB action and start restoring. And you can see I've already got printed transaction restored, and I've now got access to all 12 quotes. Now, currently, the only place where we're setting the user defaults to true for our product being purchased is inside this part when a successful transaction, a successful payment is made. But if you think about it, let's say the user buys a new iPhone and downloads this app again. Now, that user default is going to be wiped clean. So even if they restore their purchase, if we don't set this user default as well, then the next time they open up the app, once it's gone into the background, then they'll still have the same problem. So instead of having our user defaults up here inside the block of code when the user makes a successful transaction, we're going to cut it and we're going to paste it into this function, show premium quotes, and we're going to put it right at the top, and especially before we reload the data. Because when we reload the data, we need to make sure this has already been set to true so that when we check how many cells we need to show, this has to be true in order for us to return the right number of cells without that last buy button. There's just one last user experience sort of tiny thing that we could do, is we should probably remove the restore button once it has been restored. So in order to do that, if the restore was successful, then in addition to all of this, we're also going to tap into the navigation item, and namely the one that we want is the right bar button item, and we're going to set the right bar button item, which currently has that button, which is the restore button. We're going to set it to nil, to remove it basically, to have no right bar button items, and we'll set animated to true. So now when I delete this app and I run it again and I hit the restore button, once it's been successfully restored, that confusing button goes away. So I hope this has been fun and you've learned how to implement in-app purchases in your apps and start generating more revenue for all of the apps that you create. And we've gone through the process of how to restore transactions, how to process transactions, how to set up in-app purchases, how to process in-app purchases, and how to restore transactions. So that's all from me in this module, and I hope to see you on the next lesson.